We welcome you to historic Wrigley Field in Chicago. Opening game of a 3-game series between the Reds and the streaking Cubbies. Of course, they're coming off a no-hitter last night in Los Angeles by Jake Arrieta, so it is a charged-up crowd here tonight as the Cubs not only excited about the no-hitter, Chris, they're excited about the potential of being back in the playoffs for the first time since 2008. Tonight, they'll face Michael Lorenzen, who is now back in the Reds rotation.
Well, he's got to be happy about being back in the major leagues. He certainly went down to the minor leagues, and he earned his way back up. It was a tough time for him, though, when they sent him back down. His last 7 starts were really something that he would love to forget about. But every time you think about Lorenzen and talk about him, you've got to remind yourself in the first sentence, he is only 23 years old, so it's a lot of learning process. He did a lot of learning down there in Louisville, and hopefully he'll be able to bring back to the major leagues what he did down there in the International League.
Now, one of the hitters he'll be facing in his Cub lineup tonight, the young man who grew up just north of Cincinnati in Middletown, Kyle Schwarber.
Well, if you're a Reds pitcher, you don't want to see videos of this guy because all it does is show him whacking the ball hard against the Reds. Young man from Middletown, Ohio, has come back and he has really made a mark for himself in the major leagues in his first season. I mean, he's batting second in the lineup tonight. You see the numbers that he's had against the Reds. He's got a very short path to the ball. He's very powerful. Really hard guy to get the fastball inside on. So we'll see what the Reds, how they decide to pitch Schwarber and a lot of the other power hitters in this Cubs lineup tonight.
Well, you hear the crowd behind us. They are recognizing Arrieta after his no-hitter performance last night against the Dodgers. And when we come back, Jim Day is going to start to break down some of the plays in the month of August, this being the final day of August. You're watching Reds baseball on Fox Sports Ohio.
Regional Tourism Network. Stay close to CincinnatiUSA.com. By Chevy. Check out their award-winning lineup only at your Tri-State Chevy dealer. And by Skyline Chili. Feeling good. It's Skyline time. In the friendly confines This is friendly. Frazier and Suarez, get down with your bad self, I think. Ijib Day as we close out August, as we've done throughout the rest of the season or previous in this season. We'll give you the plays of the month in August. Top 4 tonight. And we'll start with number 4, and it involves one of the aforementioned, Eugenio Suarez. Dodger Stadium. Check out the pick right here. 6-3 double play. Got off to a slow start defensively, did Suarez, but he has been good since and can certainly swing that bat. That is moment number 4 of the month. Top 3 coming up in the game as we go upstairs to the gentleman that'll call it, Tom Brenneman and Chris Welch.
It is a warm night here in Chicago. It's gotten a lot more humid, much like we understand it has back in Cincinnati over the last couple of days, especially during the entire weekend. That's why it's somewhat surprising, to be honest with you, Chris, to see some of the Reds down there right now wearing long sleeves. But that is the case for the manager, Brian Price. Let's take a look at the Reds starting lineup tonight, presented by Maya. Jason Bourgeois to be followed by Jay Bruce and Joey Votto. Brandon Phillips, Todd Frazier, Ivan De Jesus, Sanad in left field. Eugenio Suarez dropped down to the 7th spot. He's cooled off a little bit here lately. Tucker Barnhart catching the right-hander Michael Lorenzen. Starting at 4, the Cubs makes his 26th start of the year. He has 1 complete game. 6 up, 6 down for Kyle Hendricks.
Well, he's not an overpowering pitcher. He's only 25 years old, but still a couple of years older than his counterpart, Michael Lorenzen, when Lorenzen takes the mound tonight. Young man that grew up in California, did his college work in Hanover, New Hampshire at Dartmouth College, and that's where he was originally drafted by the Texas Rangers, 8th round, 2011. This year he's trying to right the ship, and he's not been very good lately. In fact, he's been on a stream that has gone last 7 ball games where he's gone 2-2, and he's had an earned run average of around 6. You see the second half bump that he has had from that earned run average. That's a tough thing to live with when you're the Cubs and you're in pennant contention. But he did come off an outing last time against the Giants where he went 6 innings for the first time in 4 starts. So they're looking for positive things out of Kyle Hendricks tonight.
It is a beautiful night here in Chicago. Night game tonight, night game tomorrow night, and then a day game to wrap it up on Wednesday afternoon. Jason Bourgeois, 247 batter, a home run, 8 runs batted in. Reds come in 53 up, 76 down. It is strike 1 and we're underway.
You know what this ballpark has, Tom, that a lot of other ballparks don't. And maybe it's because the Cubs are in contention. There's a lot of energy around Wrigleyville. But it has a sound of a murmur all the time. And maybe it's just the way it's constructed. Maybe it's where our booth is compared to where our booth is in other places. But, I mean, you hear the murmur here that you don't hear at a lot of other ballparks.
But I think you touch on a point that certainly is valid in that there is a difference to this ballpark, even more so. Certainly heightened that murmur. When you walk in here the final day of August, turning the calendar to September tomorrow, and the Cubs are in the hunt, and they are very much in the hunt. Right now they would be in the playoffs under first-year manager Joe Madden. There's a slow bouncer to third, and trying to barehand the ball is Tommy La Stella. He comes up empty, and that's an infield hit for Bourgeois. Cubs have been making a lot of changes on defense. We'll talk more about that throughout the rest of the night. But tonight they stack up this way, brought to you by Ford. They have Coghlan in left, Fowler in center, Chris Bryant moves over to right. La Stella starts at third. Addison Russell is now their regular shortstop. And Starlin Castro has become a part-time player at best. He is a second baseman now, Rizzo at first. And Schwarber behind the plate, although that is now not his regular position any longer. Swung on and fouled out of play. I mean, since we last saw these Cubs, remember they had Miguel Montero on the disabled list, and Schwarber was catching every day. Well, since Montero's come back, Schwarber's playing in the outfield every day. but they have so many different players that can play so many different positions. As that ball gets away from the catcher, Schwarber.
Boy, he just threw it right by Schwarber. Just didn't look like he got his glove up in time.
Well, they play that many positions, I think, because Joe Madden is not afraid to move guys around. And you're going to see plays like this. Although Schwarber is a catcher, I don't know what happened. He must have just got to shield it out on that ball.
You know, you look around at the players they have on the field right now, and you just start with the outfield. Forget Fowler. He's been out there every day. Bryant has played left. He's played right. He would be their regular third baseman if they played in the playoffs tomorrow. You look out in left field. Coghlan has played left. He's played right.
He's played second
and third.
And third and first.
And so, and it's not only that they just put him in there in some extra inning game. They're moving guys around like that on a daily basis, as that is a very non-productive out for Jay Bruce. A runner at second base. And a pop-up into left field. Bourgeois doesn't move. Here comes Joey Votto.
Well, what really makes that distressing on that at bat by Jay Bruce is that it was a 1-1 count. So he really hadn't even taken Hendricks deep into the count before he ended up having to hit the ball to left field and not moving the runner to third base.
Joey Votto checks in at batting average all the way up to .312. 25 home runs, 65 runs batted in. He had 2 more hits, also drew a walk yesterday. This guy has just been on fire. And you see 2 of 4, both his hits against Hendricks, home runs. And you wonder if there will be a pitch in this at bat that will be a strike.
Why would there be? Although the Reds have been pretty good at scoring runs in the first inning. In fact, they're second in the National League in first inning runs. They've scored 82. Only the Colorado Rockies have scored more.
Now Votto will be ready to hit here 3-0. We know he likes to hit 3-0, that he will swing the bat 3-0. So if Hendricks thinks he's just going to sneak something by him here on a 3-0 pitch, he better think again. Now that was not a hitter's pitch necessarily for Votto.
Like a cutter. You know, Hendricks throws mostly two-seam fastballs. He tries to get ground balls with. The average is around 89, 90 on the fastball. He really likes his changeup a lot, especially to left-handers. So if he's going to throw a strike here, I imagine it's going to be down and away, and there's the changeup where that was a fastball, and he missed it in ball 4.
All right, so Votto will take the walk, a category which he leads the National League in, of course. And now we'll see if Brandon Phillips can get the Reds on the board here in the top of the first inning. Cubs are 19-8 in the month of August, tied with the New York Mets and the Pittsburgh Pirates for the best record this month in the National League. And they have played 500 or better baseball in every calendar month this season. They've not won 20 games in a month since August of 2008. We keep mentioning 2008 because it's the last time the Cubs were in the postseason. Very nice block right there by Schwarber on a ball that bounced about 4 feet, 3 feet in front of home plate.
Yeah, that 2008, you're going back to the Lou Piniella days.
Yep. They were also in the postseason in 2007. They haven't won a playoff game since 2003. That's when Dusty Baker was here. They played against the Marlins.
One ball, one strike. The runners take off, and a bouncing ball back up through the middle. Out, out. Boy, you talk about Lady Luck smiling on the Cubs. Take a look at this as we go to break. One man left. Reds scoreless. Cubs coming up. Let's take a look at Joe Maddon's starting lineup. It reads as follows. Dexter Fowler, Kyle Schwarber, Chris Coghlan has started. Anthony Rizzo, Chris Bryant, Tommy La Stella, the middle third. Starlin Castro, the pitcher, bats eighth. And batting ninth, the shortstop, Addison Russell. Welcome back to the major leagues. Highly touted Reds prospect who was struggling right before he was sent down. Pitched very well, Chris, as you mentioned in Louisville. That's Michael Lorenzen.
Well, they really did, including a complete game down in Louisville for the bats. Really two things to watch of Michael Lorenzen tonight. One is you can watch a radar gun. We have it for you right there on the screen. The second is how he finishes his pitches. And that was one of the things that he tried to correct during some bullpens down in Louisville. He thought he made major strides getting back to where he was earlier in the year. That's not a finish. But when you stand up at the very end of your delivery, you're not getting out there really finishing. And you have to tell yourself, that's how you do it. You got to get way out over on your left knee if you're a right-handed pitcher. Get your head kind of going in the same direction as the pitch ball.
Bouncing ball. How about that? Just a little dribbler down the line, and that's a stand-up double for Fowler. Well, already two swings, and the bounces are going the Cubbies' way early on tonight.
Yeah, they sure are. The Reds had the infield drawn around a little bit because they don't think that Fowler ever hits a ball down the line like that. And he barely hit it, but he got a double. So now the Reds had the same situation where they had a runner at first base, actually to second base after a pass ball. Nobody out. Their number two hitter couldn't get him over to third. We'll see if Schwarber has a different approach than Jay Bruce.
Schwarber, a swing and a miss.
What good looking change up there from Lorenzen. Powered a fastball in first, got Schwarber's clock sped up a little bit, and then you take something off.
When Schwarber first came up, I mean, he was not going to cover off the ball. Recently, he's falling into, his first slump. Same thing Bruce did.
Yeah. Fly
ball to left field. And now he's hitless in his last 11 at-bats as Kyle Schwarber, one away in the inning. The Reds on defense, presented by Ford. De Jesus, Bourgeois, Bruce left, center, and right. Otto and Frazier, the corner infielders. Phillips and Suarez up the middle. Lorenzen back in the big leagues for the first time since August the 11th. That was a start. He lasted an inning and a third in San Diego. Gave up 7 hits, 7 earned runs, and that was it. On the heels of games where he allowed 4 to these Cubs, 8 against Colorado in 2 1/3 innings, 5 in 5 innings against the Pirates. But he didn't hang his head. He didn't sulk. That's not Lorenzen's MO. Got together with Ted Power down there in Louisville. That's AAA pitching coach. And they went to work. 0-2 on Chris Coghlan. Fowler has 17 stolen bases and thrown out 7 times. Good pitch right there to put away Coghlan. Good morning, good afternoon, and good night.
Well, he got ahead of him and then dropped that little slider on him, and it's got nice depth tonight. Got a high arm angle to this Michael Lorenzen, and when he stays on top of that ball, you can drive that baby straight down.
Here's Anthony Rizzo. He takes a fastball away for ball 1. Rizzo hit a 441-foot home run off Clayton Kershaw on Friday night. And there's something about Rizzo when he scores runs, running parallel to the Cubs winning games. They are a whopping 41-14, their record, when Rizzo just scores a run in a game. Those are real good numbers right there with runners in scoring position. The Reds have done a nice job, however, on Rizzo this season. He's been less than a 200 batter against Reds pitching so far, trying to keep him down there. And he takes a 3-0 pitch in there, a strike. Challenged with a fastball at 95 on a 3-1 pitch and fouled back out of play. Not only is Rizzo a 327 batter with runners in scoring position, he's a 324 batter with runners in scoring position and 2 out. Gone swinging. How about that? Gas on 3-2. 96. Welcome back, Mr. Lorenzen. Celebrating Reds Toberfest. We'll be celebrating German Heritage Day in Cincinnati. First 20,000 fans receive a Reds Stein thanks to Hollywood Casino. So come on down to the ballpark, and don't forget that is a rare 1:10 Saturday game. So you pull off the double duty day. Little Reds baseball at 1:10 and swing by the refurbished reopening of University of Cincinnati's Nippert Stadium. I can't wait to see that place.
I hear it is just
the pictures
tremendous.
Are incredible. It's already a great venue, but it needed some work. And the pictures online are just spectacular. And of course, they're picked to win their conference this year, and they think they're going to be very, very good. One-two pitch. Fastball taken high. No score. We're in the top of the second inning in game 1 of 3. The Reds are going to miss the top 2 pitchers in this Cubs rotation. Arrieta coming off the no-hitter last night at Dodger Stadium. And they will miss John Lester in this series. They get Dan Herron solid tomorrow night. Jason Hamels had a nice year. Good ERA anyway. Hendricks waiting on Frazier to get back to the box. Count of 3 balls and 2 strikes. This ball is in the air. Deep center field. The Fowler will have room. There's basically no wind tonight. None at all. It's a humid night. The ball will not be helped, nor will it be knocked down. You got to earn it.
This is really the first time we've come here where it might have a tendency to be a little bit of a hitter's weather. Most every time the Reds have come into town here, the wind has blown in more than it has blown out, and certainly on those cold nights early in the year, very hard to get balls out of here except down the lines. Of course, when you hit a fly ball off of Kyle Hendricks, it means he didn't do his job. He likes to live down around the knees. Gets lots of ground balls.
Ivan De Jesus Jr., 263 batter, 4 home runs, 17 batted in. De Jesus last started the opening game of his road trip in Milwaukee, and he was on base twice. A walk, a line out, and a single. Very important series for the Washington Nationals begins tonight. They scored a run in the first inning in St. Louis. Every game will be an important game the rest of the way for the Nationals. Giants and Dodgers start a big series later tonight at Dodger Stadium. Breaking ball down and away. The Mets are division leaders in the National League East at home against the Phillies. And that's a scoreless game in the bottom of the 5th in the Eastern time zone. On swinging De Jesus. First strikeout for Hendricks, 2 away.
Well, you see what Hendricks has done in his career, both at Wrigley and at Great American Ballpark against the Reds. He's pitched twice this year against the Reds, once good and once not so good. For the early start in June, he went 5 innings of 1-run baseball. The Cubs won that game 4-3. In his last outing on July the 22nd, he gave up 5 runs in 6 innings. So it has been good and bad for Hendricks this year against Cincinnati.
1-2 the count on Suarez, and he barely gets a piece of it to hang around.
You know, when Hendricks is on his game, the way that I guess to describe him is that he can give you a comfortable 0 for 3 or 0 for 4. You feel like you see every pitch and that you're on every pitch, but sometimes you don't square him up, although teams have been squaring him up quite a bit recently.
For those of you perhaps just watching a game for the first time this year here from Wrigley Field, maybe you missed the first couple of series the Reds were in this year. They were doing construction on this ballpark. And when we come back, we'll show you some of the new video boards they put up this year. And it's a very different looking Wrigley Field than it's been in the past. And look at this, Chris, already surpassing a single season record. And we have longer than a month, 33 games left, including tonight. And of course, a rookie is starting tonight. And it's hard to imagine there won't be a rookie starting every game for the remainder of this season.
Well, the one thing that you can pretty much count on is it will not be that record will not be broken next year by the Reds.
No, that's for sure.
They will lead the world in sophomore starts.
Chris Bryant to lead things off. Scoreless game. We're in the second inning. A very impressive first inning for Lorenzen. Frazier scoops it up nicely. In time to get Bryant. Bryant, for a big man, runs well.
Once he gets it going, he really does. Boy, Todd Frazier is just solid at third base. I mean, we saw him make a tremendous play in Milwaukee yesterday. I mean, just how he's able to funnel that ball up after he catches it backhanded and throws it right on the money.
He's just a solid player. He's a baseball player. He doesn't try to be anything else. He is what he is. Just a ball player. And that was a reputation on him going all the way back his first year in the Red system. And by the time he got to Dayton, those folks who saw him regularly would tell you the guy that's the player, the best player on this team is Frazier.
And the drawbacks are really mainly about his batting style, not necessarily his production. but just the way he went about his swing. A arm bar is what they call it, and we can talk about it when he comes to the plate. But you know, he has been able to figure that out.
That one thrown down in the dirt. I think Frazier's giving Lorenzen a hard time. We talk about an athlete now. That would define Michael Lorenzen. Yeah.
He might be the best conditioned athlete in the Reds organization. See, you know, if you're Joey Votto at their first base, nice play by Votto, you have to be ready all the time for a bad throw. If you think every throw's coming to your chest, you may not make that play when they finally throw in the dirt.
Joey dancing a little bit to that
Getting
song?
up to the little walk-up music.
Yeah.
By Starlin Castro. I didn't recognize the song. Maybe Jim Day could ask Joey if he maybe has that on his iPod.
Well, I have no doubt Jim Day will do just that right after the old ball game. Heck, maybe in between innings. Pass called up and in. Jim Day, was he looking? He looked over at somebody and was smiling. I don't know if some of his teammates were giving him a hard time. They caught him sort of roll into that. Quickly, Jim, was he looking at you or somebody else?
I definitely wasn't looking at me. It was someone in the dugout.
I don't know. I don't know about that. End of 2, no score. No-hitter in franchise history last night. He walked one batter. That was Jimmy Rollins in a 6. Struck out 12, one shy of his career high. It was the first no-hitter by a Cub since Carlos Zambrano. And again, we continue to go back to that year, 2008. Tucker Barnard trying to butt his way on, just thrown out. First pitch here in a scoreless game in the 3rd inning.
It's a nice bunt by Tucker right there. I'm not sure he could lay it down any better than that. Maybe a little bit more towards the line. Kyle Hendricks made a nice play, barehanded, and fired right on the money. Well, that's textbook there.
Here's Lorenzen. We know he can hit. Big swing and a foul ball out of play. No balls and 2 strikes on Michael Lorenzen. The Cubs played on Sunday Night Baseball last night. So by the time they landed here in Chicago, the sun was right on the brink of making its appearance here in the Windy City. It was already well into the skies above, rising from the east by the time most of them put their heads on the pillows to call it a night. And you may have heard about what Joe Maddon decided to do before the ball game yesterday. Jim Day has that story coming up here in just a second. 1 ball and 2 strikes on Michael Lorenzen. On swinging. How about it, Jim Day?
Well, this is classic Joe Maddon right here. Because they were flying all night long, he made it PJ's night, as in pajamas. Check out Jake Arrieta after the no-hitter. And the rule here was that there had to be one-piece pajamas. So there's a group shot, as you can see right there. Some Superman, Batman in there. And that's the way Joe Maddon likes to keep it loose with his team. I know a lot of people dislike the Cubs back in Reds country, understandably so, but how can you not like Joe Maddon the way he goes about his business?
You know, oftentimes it is the manager that sets the tone, obviously in the clubhouse and for the team, but sets the tone for the perception of a team nationally by the way that individual carries himself. And the Cubs have been a disliked team by a lot of people for a long, long time. For whatever reason. You know, maybe you don't like the way their fans come into your particular home ballpark and cheer and make a lot of noise. There are a lot of reasons why, and it's not to suggest that guys they've had in the manager's job people didn't like. But there certainly is a different feeling about the Cubs, I sense anyway. Chris, I don't know if you would agree. With now Maddon running this show, I think there are more people that are actually kind of hoping to see them in the postseason.
Well, I think there's a lot of Joe Maddon fans out there. I think that's one of the things you're saying. You have to also remember that, you know, if another manager tried that, it just might not work.
A 1-2-3 inning. 11 pitches by Hendricks. We're scoreless after 2.5.
Ryan Pena in Dodger Stadium. Pretty double play. The big fella laying out and having the wherewithal to get up and complete the double play. And let's go all Pena here. Another moment. Los Rojos jerseys. Little dance step. Dipsy-doo and getting in there safe. And in classic Pena fashion. Celebrating it. Moment number 3. Top 2 coming up.
Great stuff, Jim Day. Thank you. A couple more days to hang out with Jim Day on this road trip. It's always a lot of fun. You know, him and the Cowboy, they go out and get big league dinners together, you know, Chris, on those nights where we rarely have a chance in cities to get out to dinner.
Well, you can get big league dinners in this town.
Yes.
And I'm sure the Cowboy knows a few places.
And his main running mate is, of course, Jim Day. The tapper down to third, one away in the inning. Well, right now you can tweet your strongest fan photo. Use hashtag #OhioDataStrongFan. It's brought to you by T-Mobile. We'll be showing one of those a little bit later on tonight. You know, I would imagine a guy like Jim Day, when we get a night in a city to go out to dinner, which really is quite rare. I mean, between Brandon, Joey, Cowboy, and Chris, you know, when you and I ask him, he kind of looks down his nose at you and me.
Yeah.
You know?
I've noticed that.
Yeah.
I do not hang with the players, despite what you may think. I have a very professional relationship at work, but it is a policy: do not hang with the players.
Okay. Then I beg your pardon. I beg your pardon.
But I'd like to hang out with you, Tom.
Well, you know, we were trying to get a hold of you last night, and then mysteriously, both you and the Cowboy, Chris and I, were trying to run you down.
Yeah.
Did you ever hear back
I
at
never
all?
heard back.
I didn't either. I'm still looking.
Maybe my
online.
text didn't go through.
Yeah, I think it's for that of mine. 3 that were sent.
Upset that you even had my number. I didn't know it was in your phone list.
2-2 the count on Addison Russell. Hey, this is another move that. Does Joe Madden have the quote-unquote juice to make a move like this? Obviously he does. It's one thing to have the power to do it. It's another thing to do it. Starlin Castro has been a fixture in this Cubs organization since the day he came up. And to all of a sudden come to the conclusion, watching almost 3/4 of this year, you got to sit the guy down and say, look, you're not an everyday player on this team anymore. Russell's moving into short. We'll start you from time to time as a second baseman. We need a fill-in shortstop. That's fine. And there are many that believe, Chris, if Baez comes up here tomorrow, who's on fire right now, remember, he's a big prospect along with Soler this time a year ago. He's not going to cover off the ball in the minor leagues. There are many that believe there's a legitimate chance Baez becomes their regular second baseman the rest of this season. And then if they're in the postseason, Castro might not even be on the roster. That's hard to believe.
Well, they'd have to activate Baez tonight, right? Don't you have to do that before September 1st?
I think there's some.
You could
maneuver
manipulate
around
the roster
with
some disabled lists, names going back and forth, and they did put a couple on.
Oh, and hit down the left field line into the basket. Opposite field, home run by Fowler. Boy, everything that could go the Cubs' way tonight is going the Cubs' way tonight.
Feel pretty safe by throwing the ball up and away to Dexter Fowler. He's not known for his opposite field power, but he sticks one in the basket right inside the foul pole.
When we say the ball is bouncing the Cubbies' way tonight, if you weren't with us in the first inning, the Reds had first and second, one out. They started the runners. The second baseman came over to cover the bag, and the ball was hit right to him. Fielded the ball through the first double play. Bottom of the first inning, Fowler just taps one right up the third base line, a double. And now a ball right down the line drops into the basket.
Pajama power.
Yes. Fowler set a new high in his career for runs scored in the season, 85, and we still have a month left to go. Over a month worth of games as we play actually into the start of October this year. Schwarber out of there on strikes to end the inning. A solo home run by Fowler. End of 3. Cubs lead 1-0. Tomorrow, who does Joey Votto consider one of his baseball idols? And what book does he refer to whenever he's in a slump? You won't want to miss the story of Reds employee Chris Harrell and his meeting with a man who saved his life. It's an incredible story. Check it out. Chet Picoro, Doug Flynn will hit the air Wednesday following the Reds and Cubs afternoon tilt. Top of the 4th, 2, 3, and 4 in the Reds batting order with Chicago on a Dexter Fowler home run, a 1-0 lead. Reds have one hit. That was an infield hit, the first batter of the night, Jason Bourgeois. Reds did not execute some fundamental baseball back in that first inning. As Bruce taps out to the mound, one away. Joey Votto drew a walk in the first. That was with a runner at second and first base open. And then Phillips bounced into that weird double play to end the inning when the runners were both moving. Bourgeois second to third, Joey first to second. Pitch, that's what we were talking about the last time he had 3-0. You put it in there, he's going to let it rip. And that ball was ripped. Guy can hit, man.
He can hit. I mean, his powers of concentration are really something else. That is his third hit in 4 at-bats on a 3-0 count this year. Todd Frazier's the other Red that really likes to hit and let it loose on a 3-0 count. He's had very good results. But you know, if you're a pitcher, it's the same as a walk. Although pitchers don't like to get squared up like that.
What a sloppy play by the second baseman Castro there. He had no chance to double off the runner, and even if he did, that would not be exactly the fundamental way of throwing over to first base.
On a line drive right at the second baseman. Double bad luck for Phillips in 2 at-bats. And he just throws that ball weakly in the dirt and it just dies at first base. I mean, he figured he had to get rid of it if he had any chance to get Votto at all, which he did. Votto's standing on the bag. I don't think it was really that much of a maverick move to have finally somebody tell Starlin Castro, we don't like the way you play and you're not an everyday player. I think that mood has been around Chicago and certainly in the scouting community for quite a while. So if after the trading deadline is when Joe Madden went to Starlin Castro and said, we're moving you out and putting you on the bench and you can go part-time second baseman, I'm sure there was after they explored many other opportunities to try to trade him somewhere. And there just may not have been too many takers.
Well, I don't think there's any doubt about that, especially
with that salary that he's making.
Yeah. Well, he signed him to a long-term contract. He is signed through 2019. 19. And you know, Chris, you and I talk about this off the air a lot. I know there are sound arguments that can be made about taking away the chance of arbitration, and you're buying up some of those years. And in some cases, Castro's case, they bought up a year or two of free agency potential in his contract.
Yeah.
But my, oh my, if you don't have to do it, why do teams do it? If you know you can get guys, we always hear from baseball people, give me the guy that's on a 1-year contract.
But they never do it.
They never do it. And, you know, there's a lot of talk in that regard about Todd Frazier, as there's ball 4. 2 on, 2 out in the inning. And we're not going to sit up here and debate the merits of whether or not you give Todd Frazier a long-term deal. That's up to Walt Jocketty and Bob Castellini and a lot of other people above our pay scale. But if you don't have to do it, should you do it? And so that's something the Reds are going to have to try and figure out. It's exactly what the Reds did this past offseason with Devin Mesoraco. And that was a trend that, I'm not going to say the Cleveland Indians organization started it, but they had so many outstanding young players back in the mid-1990s when John Hart was their general manager, that they gave a lot of young players those 3-4-year contracts, and they were one of the, if not the, trendsetter as far as doing that with multiple players that they had on their major league team.
And a lot of those deals worked out for them. So every other manager or general manager and owner that wants to ink a player to a long-term deal is thinking, well, we're going to be the smart ones. You know, we're going to sign the guy or the guys who we really feel are can't miss. And, you know, when the Cubs signed Starlin Castro, I'm sure that that's what they thought.
Sure.
Because this young man, I mean, his first couple of years in the big leagues were very good.
He had over 200 hits each of his first 2 years.
300 his first year, 307 his second year. Played 162 games. Was an all-star in his second and third season.
Two and one on Ivan De Jesus Jr.
There's always been a little bit of a knock on Castro as to his approach. You know, whether he was really a grinder or not. Now, he played on some bad teams. So sometimes that can get you down, but this is not a bad team this year. So when they needed him, to kind of step up and be a leader on this club. Evidently it didn't happen, or else he wouldn't be losing his job.
There's a 10th lowest on-base percentage among all players in Major League Baseball. Let's see if De Jesus can get the Reds on the board. 2 on, 2 out, 2 balls, 2 strikes. And he will. Base hit into center field will score Votto. So that error really does come back to hurt the Cubs. Now, there was a walk in there. You could say, well, he'd have gotten a second anyway. Well, they might have pitched Todd Frazier a little bit differently with a runner at first rather than a runner at second.
Really good 2-strike hitting right here by Ivan De Jesus. I mean, he's got to be thinking, hey, I like this playing time I'm getting. You want me to play left field? I'll do that. And as long as he gives you at-bats like he has given the Reds right there, he'll probably continue to get penciled in there.
So De Jesus, his 18th run batted in limited playing time until lately. And now let's see if Eugenio Suarez can find that groove that he was in just to build up until about the last 10 days. The count on Eugenio Suarez. Frazier the runner at second. De Jesus a run scoring single at first. And now 2-0 on Suarez. And Suarez has been struggling. He's in a good hitter's count right here. Let's see if he can put a good swing on a 2-0 pitch. Figures to get a strike from Hendricks. Spun up there, something took a little off at 87 miles per hour, and it's taken a strike.
Well, he's a guy that has had a hard time pitching his way out of jams and limiting the damage against him. See the very low number right there at the bottom of your screen there. Batting average with runners in scoring position and 2 outs. He'll get out of this jam without any further damage.
Yep, let's get a run to tie the game. 1-1 after 3.5 from Wrigley Field. Ford Go Further by Meyer. Find more for a healthier you at Meyer. And by Cincinnati Children's, ranking 3rd in the country on the U.S. News and World Report's best children's hospitals in America. All of you watching over at Cincinnati Children's, a pleasant good evening to you. We hope you've had a great day and pray for a better one tomorrow. We're at Wrigley Field. It's a 1-1 game. Michael Lorenzen, your thoughts so far through the front three?
So far, so good. The velocity test for Lorenzen is just about right on schedule with him. He's throwing the ball very hard tonight, way harder than he did actually in his last start up here in the major leagues, and then even when he was throwing down there in Louisville. So the advice he got down in Louisville with working with Ted Power, which is finish your pitches, evidently is paying off, and he's kept that in mind. And that's something simple like that. I'm sure it's the same thing that he heard up here, but you know, maybe being sent down in the minor leagues gets a whole different perspective, because if you want to work your way back, you know you've got to work very hard to do it. It's a wake-up call. But you can't keep running a kid out there giving up 7 runs every 2 innings. And that's why the minor leagues are there. I mean, if they didn't like Michael Lorenzen, they wouldn't have brought him back up. They wouldn't have drafted him in the first round. They wouldn't be giving him an opportunity to pitch in the major leagues right now.
A quick pitch. We saw him do that from time to time, learning from his buddy Johnny Cueto. How about that?
I like it. Here's the quick pitch you're talking about, Tom. He normally has a big high leg kick, very deliberate delivery. Here he just kind of rocks, steps, and throws. That'll be the next stat they keep. What is his batting average against on the quick pitch? Of course, by true definition, a quick pitch is an illegal pitch. It's a pitch when the batter's not in the batter's box, ready to go. And you don't really see too many of those. I haven't seen one called in a long time. I always used to hear that the best way to deliver a pitch that's kind of like a quick pitch is to, if a batter is waiting a long time and you're staring in there at him, as soon as you see his lips move, that's when you pitch. Because what he's likely doing is asking for timeout. So he's mentally already gone because he's asked for timeout. But the umpire hasn't processed it yet and given him timeout. So that's your split second of opportunity to sneak one in there on him. When you threw slow, when your fastball was the range mine was in, you had to try every trick available.
Why not? Why not? Well, he just blew Rizzo away for the second time tonight.
I mean, that one was pretty much center cut right down the middle, and just power versus power. We knew it was going to be one of these times. We're going to get a flamethrower brought to you by Cholula Hot Sauce, and Michael Lorenzen. That's a good-looking four-seam fastball at 94.
So now Bryant hit a ground ball to the backhand side of Todd Frazier. Made a nice pickup and threw completely across the diamond. Bag to bag virtually. Just in time to get Bryant. He laces one into center field for a 2-out single. It's the third Cubs hit tonight.
Second time that Chris Bryant's hit the ball hard.
Coming up later on, we'll have our Miller Time moment brought to you by Miller Lite. Reds have dropped 13 of their last 15, so we haven't had a lot of Miller Time moments on the Reds side of the ledger of late. Why not mix a couple in this series? Here's La Stella. He's only playing in his 9th game tonight. Ball one. was a member of the Cubs opening day roster, but went on the disabled list 2 weeks into the season with a right oblique strain. Activated from the DL, option to Iowa in August. Initially broke in through the major leagues a season ago as an Atlanta Brave. 2-1. Jumped all over that. Fastball from Lorenzen, but hooks it foul. 2-2.
Showed pretty good bat speed right there. Losello did, but if you look in his minor league numbers, he's never really been much of a power hitter. That shot over there, when Brian stands up, it gives you an idea how big that guy is. I mean, look at it. I mean, Joey Votto's a big guy. Brian looks like Dave Kingman.
The ball stunned, but right at Bourgeois to end the inning. We've played 4 where the Cubs and the Reds in game 1 of 3 are tied at 1.
There haven't been a lot of times to celebrate Reds offense this season, but there certainly was on August 24th where the Reds against the Tigers. Man, did they have themselves a 6th inning. They scored 10 runs in that inning. It was an unbelievable offensive display. Suarez had 3 RBIs in the inning. Brandon Phillips had 4 runs driven in the inning, including that triple right there. Moment number 2 of the month, and boy, to see some runs put on the board here tonight.
1 run, 3 hits for each team so far. Tucker Barnhart, for the 2nd time tonight, is leading off an inning. He tried to bunt his way on, you may recall. His first time up, it was a really nice bunt. But the pitcher made a good play and got him by less than half a step. His foot was in the air getting ready to hit the bag when the ball hit Rizzo's mitt. Castro. Nice play there.
Well, he's always had the ability to make the really superlative play, and he makes a real nice one here. It ticks the glove of the pitcher. And he's got to have a little bit of an arm. And, of course, the former shortstop or current part-time shortstop, he's got plenty of arm. So with Lorenzen now, the Reds are back to more of a nationally conventional type lineup. Billy Hamilton on the disabled list and not in the lineup. You know, the pitchers were batting in the 8th spot when Hamilton was playing because they tried to get Billy Hamilton on base in front of the rest of when the lineup turned over. Now Joe Madden continues to play his pitcher in the 8th spot in the lineup, really regardless of who bats in the 9th spot. They got him, but where to get him?
I'm wondering if they got him in the forearm, the right forearm. Let's take a look. Oh, right fingers.
Right hand, yeah.
Well, you have a young man getting his chance to come back up to the big leagues. He has swung the ball so beautifully here tonight. And he's going to stay in there. Whatever he said, it brings a big chuckle to Billy Hatcher. That's one of the great smiles in all of humanity. Man, when that guy smiles, he lights up an entire room, doesn't he?
And he smiles a lot.
Yeah, he does. He's a good baseball man. I tell you, he really knows this game inside and out and has a lot to offer for those who listen. And a base hit into right field by Bourgeois. So Lorenzen hit with a pitch with 1 out in the inning. And now all of a sudden you have something cooking.
Really good bit of hitting here by Bourgeois. Just sees the hole on the right side. Takes that little pitch right there. Lorenzen's got to hold up. Make sure he doesn't get hit by that batted ball.
Bosio, he pitching coach for the Chicago Cubs. He'll come out and visit.
Just come sprinting out of the dugout to get out there to talk to his guy.
Well, it gives us a chance to ask the question, are you playing fantasy baseball?
You're asking me that question?
I am.
No, I'm not.
What about those of you at home? I bet a lot of you are. MLB.TV serves up real-time highlights. And you can track info on your out-of-market fantasy players live or on demand at MLB.TV today. 2 on. Second hit in 3 at-bats for Jason Bourgeois. And here comes Jay Bruce, who's 0 for 2 at-bats. A fly ball to left and a tapper to the mound. Cubs have action in their bullpen, and Joe Madden is not afraid to use the hook on his starters. Outside of Lester and Arrieta, to a lesser extent Hamill. And now he has a guy that gobbles up more innings than he was getting out of the other slot in that rotation with the acquisition of Dan Herron.
Well, the other part of it is that if you really start looking at the numbers of Kyle Hendricks, he really begins to have problems on the 3rd time through the order. So they're getting somebody ready just in case. You know, whereas the Reds, where they are in the standings versus the Cubs, you know, you can give a young pitcher maybe an extra inning or an extra batter if you're trying to develop him, and that's where Brian Price has his ball club right now. But if you're not in that same shot at all, when you're
Joe Madden. I mean, you're still trying to catch the Cardinals, or at least hold on to that very secure grip that you have on the playoff in the wild card.
Yeah, they're 5 behind the Pirates, who are the wild card leader. Cubs then have the next best record, and after winning last night, coupled with a Giants loss, their lead is 5.5. 2-2 on Jay Bruce. Of course, the Cubs were just out west, where they dropped 2 out of 3 to both the Dodgers and the Giants. Two on, 2 out. 2 on, 1 out, I beg your pardon. 2-2 pitch, and Bruce gone straight. Joey Votto is the subject of our Lowe's Never Stop Improving. Power and patience. So far this year, the second best of his career, a home run every 17 at bats. Of course, at bats are few and far between for Votto because of his walk ratio. A career best. He is walking every 5 plate appearances one time. And he's going to be walked here with 2 outs in an inning and runners at first and second base intentionally.
This is Barry Bonds' walk right here. In fact, Barry Bonds was walked a couple of times, if I'm not mistaken, with the bases loaded.
Well, the only time I remember it, I happened to be there. But I think you're right. I think it probably did happen again. But the first time, everybody was in a complete state of shock. It was done by Arizona Diamondbacks manager in their expansion season of 1998 by Buck Showalter, now the manager, of course, of the Baltimore Orioles. Not only did he walk Barry Bonds with the bases loaded, it was the 9th inning. There were 2 outs in the inning, and he walked Bonds with the bases loaded. The very next batter, backup catcher, I can see him and I can't remember his name. The guy could always hit, left-handed batting catcher. He hit a laser to right field. It was caught to end the game. I can see that catcher. I just can't think of his name. The guy could always hit. Played for a long time, huh? Boy, those moments occur more and more often. All right, they're loaded for Brandon. Swing and a miss. He's had some tough luck hitting tonight. He bounced into a double play when the runners were going at first and second with 1 out in the first inning. And then hit a line drive right at Castro. Caught it 1 inning ago. 1-1 game. They're loaded for Brandon Phillips. Well, you know Brandon wants this some kind of bad after walking the guy in front of him. If you're wondering, batting with the bases loaded this season, how's Brandon looking? 3 for 6, 500 batting average. Had 5 career slams. That's clearly the pitch Hendricks wants you to chase. Brandon did on the first pitch of the at-bat, and now he's taken 2 of them in a row. Base hit into left field by Phillips will score a pair. And he will say to the Cubbies, take that. Walking Joey Votto in front of me. There you have it. 3-1 lead for the Redlegs.
Well, Brandon Phillips, the deeper he gets in the counts, it just seems like a better hitter he becomes. That first flailing swing that he had in the at-bat, he was probably fortunate he didn't make contact with the ball. But he hits this one very hard on an inside fastball. They tried to come in on him, and he got the bat head through and easily scoring from second bases bourgeois with 2 outs.
And remember, all of this started when the pitcher was hit with 1 out in the inning. We talked about Joe Madden pulling starters in 17 of the Cubs' last 19 games. Their starter has been pulled before going 7 innings. And he'll give Lester a little rope. Arrieta has earned all the rope that you can want. But everybody else might want to have an eye on that bullpen. Breaking ball swung on and missed, 1-2. Frazier going swinging to end the inning. But the Reds get a bases loaded 2-out, 2-run single by Brandon, and their lead is 2.
Any form, and the accounts and descriptions of this game may not be disseminated without the express written consent of the Cincinnati Reds.
As you know, Sundays are family days at Great American Ballpark, and thanks to Klosterman Bakery, Cincinnati's very own, you can take advantage of 2 exclusive family ticket offers for every Sunday Reds home game. Don't miss out on the kids' giveaways, games, so much more. 381-REDS. Michael Lorenzen given his first lead of the night. Now let's keep an eye on him. Remember, he was hit on the right hand. It appeared to be on the fingers of his right hand. In the just completed top half of the 5th inning. See if there is any hint of loss command. 1-0 pitches. Shot up the left field line. This will be a double for Starlin Castro. Chris DeNorfia, one-time Red, will be set up.
You know, Castro's got the kind of swing right now that he's bailing and wailing, and that front foot of his is pretty much going right into the bucket. So when you throw him an inside fastball, you were throwing it where he just left. That's the old pitching motto, and that is a no-no spot for Castro right now.
In the background of the pitching line of Kyle Hendricks. Bob Rosenberg, the long-time official scorer, both here at Wrigley Field and on the south side of Chicago. He has that hardcore south side Chicago accent. All these years, Chris, that nasally voice coming through. Wild pitch. Wild pitch.
Yeah, he doubles up on that. Of course, a lot of people don't know that it's very rare to have the Cubs and the White Sox in town at the same time.
Yes. Every now and again you might get a 2 or 3 game over. There's Rosie. I used to call him Santa Claus here because he gave out gifts to all the Cubs hitters in his scoring decisions.
I like that.
Some would argue he gave out plenty of gifts to the other teams by not charging Cubs with errors.
Well, you're just getting into the Christmas spirit in July.
That's exactly right. Thus the nickname Santa. Fastball up and away. 3-2. He also is the official scorer for every one of these Chicago Bulls games. He is a legend in his town. In fact, they gave him championship rings. Jerry Reinsdorf did all the years the Bulls won all those NBA titles with Michael Jordan. 3-2 the count. There's a walk to the pinch hitter DeNorfia. So here comes Addison Russell. It's the first walk. And you have to continue to ask the question. Now, Brian Price is all over this. So too is Paul Assard, the Reds trainer. They know where he got hit. And they would know the signs if anything's going on with him.
Well, they would have somebody up in the bullpen right now. Really nothing going on down there.
Not quite sure if Addison Russell's going to be asked to bunt. He shows no sign of it on the first pitch.
If you're in the pennant race, you've got maybe double barrel action in the bullpen. At least somebody up. If you're not and you have a young pitcher on the mound, Lorenzen, 23 years old, you want him to have an opportunity to work out of a jam like this. And believe me, he appreciates that opportunity. This is what every pitcher wants to do. You get in trouble, I want to be the guy to get myself out of it.
Nothing in 2 on Addison Russell. 0-2 pitch hammered down the left field line. Castro will score. Ball rolls to the corner. 2 runs are going to score on a double by Addison Russell. We'll tie the 3.
Well, ahead in the count, and I guess he was trying to expand the zone with a curveball. You see where Tucker Barnhart wanted that. He was patting the ground with his glove, saying, come on, give it to me way down here, instead of hanging it down the middle. Well, that's too bad because I know that Michael Lorenzen is probably standing out on the mound thinking, you know, that's not my best pitch. And I've got to learn where to miss when you're going to miss out of the zone.
IGS bringing the energy, most home runs in the month of August. The Cubs have been flexing their muscles along with those New York Mets. Mets just finished off Philadelphia, by the way, 3-1 the final. Cubs have a home run of the game tonight by the man who bats right now. You know, you look at this inning, Lorenzen was ahead of Denorfia at 1 ball and 2 strikes. That ball is killed, but Bourgeois will track it down. First out of the inning. But he walked Denorfia after being ahead 1-2. Serves up a 2-run double to Russell after getting ahead 0-2. It's the 3rd time through the batting order now for Michael Lorenzen.
I'm a little surprised that Russell didn't go back and tag up on that ball. Maybe he thought that it had a chance to fall in, that Bourgeois would not be able to run it down. But normally when a ball is hit like that, you're on base thinking about whether to tag up. If it looks like the fielder's going to catch it, you go back and tag up. If it looks like it's going to fall in, you go. And he just misread the way Bourgeois was going to be able to really go back there and catch that ball without a problem at all. Just a bad read.
Schwarber 0 for 2. Fly to left and struck out. Well, this guy, he couldn't miss anything that was thrown up there by the Reds. Playing for the first time in his hometown. And now all of a sudden has gone 4 games without a hit. When you see overall in the month, he has hit a lot of home runs and knocked in a lot of runs despite the batting average. It's been sinking a bit here of late. But I mean, heck, you get a rookie hits you 9 bombs, drives in 24, scores 23 in a month.
You'll take that
all day, every day.
Nice play right there. Suarez and Lorenzen just a little bit slow on the trigger. Suarez was there. In order to really execute this, you throw it before the shortstop is there. You got a little flash play, and maybe that'll shorten him up a little bit.
Schwarber will give the Cubs the lead with a bouncing ball single to center field. So 25 runs batted in this month for Schwarber.
Brandon is way over here on the right side of this infield, and it leaves it wide open over here. Evidently, they feel, I'm not sure they've got the stats to prove it, as Schwarber really pulls the ball more than he goes up the middle right there. So the shortstop, Suarez, was the closest fielder to that ball, and it goes into center field for an RBI. Ryan Matthews.
Chris Coghlan the batting. Coghlan 0 for 2, struck out and grounded to short. So here Lorenzen went the first 4 innings, allowed 3 hits, 1 run, fanned 5, did not walk a batter. In his 5th inning, he's allowed 3 hits, walked a batter, given up 3 runs. And you can only wonder, does this have anything to do with him getting hit by the pitch? Not suggesting that he's in pain out there, but even if there's a little, sort of numbness, you know what I'm getting at here. I mean,
yeah,
could it affect you
I don't think so, to be honest with you. I don't think so at all. If they had any concern at all, that they would have had somebody warming up at the onset of the inning. I think this is more about Lorenzen making mistakes in the zone like he did on an 0-2 pitch to Addison Russell. The hitter seeing him now for the third time, coming around now as they've turned the lineup over.
Well, Lorenzen's the kind of kid that even if it is, just by the chance it is, he's never going to say it after a game, because he wouldn't want to use it as an excuse. That's not his deal.
Hey, it's hard to get big leaguers out when they see you 2 or 3 times or 4 times in a ball game. I mean, you have to be able to really execute your pitches. And he showed them his best fastball early on, and it may not be there anymore when he reaches back forward.
Well, the Reds have Matthews ready now in their bullpen. And here's Rizzo. He gets hit by a pitch.
Yeah, he got hit by a little cutter right there, and I just get the feeling that he's trying to trick him, or maybe it's the Reds' way to face him this time in the order, but for me, he's still getting outs on his fastball, and he's giving up base runners on his off-speed stuff.
Well, that's it. He's coming out of the game. Brian Price comes walking out of the Reds dugout with some of the right-hander Matthews. This will be our Skyline Chili call to the bullpen. It started in very impressive fashion for Michael Lorenzen, but at the end of the day, he's given up 4 runs in 5 innings. Back in a moment. Four and runs into major damage here in the 5th. 6 hits, 4 runs, all earned. 2 base runners belong to him. And now it'll be Ryan Matthews on to face Chris Bryant. It'll be a tough play, and nobody's going to be able to make it. Ball trickles into center field. Run scores. The run will count, and the runner is out at third base. So that will be an RBI single for Bryant. And the putout goes Brandon Phillips, 4-5 on Rizzo, trying to go first to third on the play. Cubs score 4 in the inning and lead 5-3. And Fox Sports 1 beginning Thursday. The head coaching debut at his alma mater, the University of Michigan, for Jim Harbaugh. The Wolverines travel to Utah, take on the Utes, and the only place you can see it, Fox Sports 1, streaming live on Fox Sports Go. I think Brian Price came out just to make sure that the run scored before the tag. It was very close.
It's a really good learning video right here for a young player, why you should always run the bases hard and never give up. Because if you slack off between third and home right there, it's all about the timing play. If they get that out of third before you touch home, that run doesn't count.
Right.
So put that in the back of your mind and just run the bases as hard as you can every time you're out there.
And it looked like Schwarber was going hard the whole way. So now all of a sudden Hendricks goes 5 innings, and he is the pitcher of record as the Cubs score 4 times to come from 2 down to 2 up. And taking over on the mound out of the Cubs bullpen is Justin Grimm, a right-hander. Those are outstanding numbers for Grimm. 53 punch-outs, 38 in the third innings, league hitting 169 against Grimm. They really give you tremendous detail in every team puts out game notes in a Major League Baseball game, and one of the real areas in baseball where people have started to focus in on, and rightfully so, when you're talking about a reliever, and they list every single one of their relievers in all of these categories and numbers and so forth. It's terrific work. I need to give credit to the Cubs for doing it, but it's inherited runners, and then how many of them, what percentage of them score. So, say Grimm walks in with 2 on and 1 out, and he allows a couple of hits that allow those runs to score. He may not be charged with the early runs. The guy in front of him is. So it's a good measuring scale of, when a guy comes in with people on base, is he making sure those guys don't score?
Well, the Cubs, if you just look at their bullpen and you judge their bullpen by earned run average, they're right in the middle of the pack. They're only a couple of percentage points better than the Reds in earned run average. But when you look at it from that standpoint, about inherited runners scored, they are the 4th best in the league.
Well, they're around 20-some%, right? 27%.
Yeah. 27% inherited runners scored.
That's really good.
The Reds are 34%.
But where does that rank in the grand scheme of things? If the Cubs are in the top 5, it may not sound like a big
Reds
difference.
are 14th out of 15. Only the Phillies are worse.
Yeah. It's a big deal. There's ball 4.
Or another good at bat.
Another category they look at, Chris. And you've been talking about this for quite some time. Even before it became in vogue, if you will. Is, how do you do against that first batter you face in an inning? 73% of the time, their relievers come into a game and they retire the first batter they face.
Good stat.
And it's all right here.
On paper.
That ball is mashed by Suarez to the seats, and right it will go. Hey, Eugenio plays a long ball, and just like that, a 5-5 game.
He's got a lot of power, Suarez does, and he stays behind this ball perfectly. He knows that when he hits it that it's got a chance, and even though the ball's not really flying out of here fast tonight, he gets it enough to get it over the basket into the second row.
Well, just like that, the Reds give up the lead. After taking the lead in the top of the fifth, they give it up in the bottom of the inning, and they have tied it on a walk and a bomb by Suarez. That one fouled away. I want to thank our good friend, one of the great baseball directors in the country for a long time out of Washington Courthouse, Ohio, Scott Johnson. You know, big wig over at another network that will remain nameless. But he reminded me that bases loaded, walked to Barry Bonds. The next guy that came up and lined out to right as there's a base hit by Tucker Barnhart was Brent Maine. Remember him?
Yeah. I would never have come up with that. I was trying to go through some of the catchers that would have qualified, and I would never have come up with his name.
So, Scotty boy, thank you, my friend. He reminds me that he has those senior moments all the time as well. He's getting revved up for another year of football. Reds will go to their bench after the single by Tucker. And making his Reds debut, Adam Duvall. You look at his numbers. He came over, of course, in the Mike Leake deal from the Giants. Has tremendous power. Almost all of that damage was done while in the Giants organization in hitter-friendly Pacific Coast League. The International League's a little different ballgame. And those are his numbers in his career. Short stint with the San Francisco Giants.
You know, the ironic thing about Adam Duvall is that in his major league debut, he hit a home run off of Mike Leake, who he was later traded for. Young man that grew up in Louisville. He went to high school there. He played for the Louisville Cardinals. Hit a home run in his first at bat for the Louisville Bats, where he was acquired. And sometimes that can be a bad thing. You get a little taste of success and you start trying to hit a home run every time you come to the plate. Can play first base, third base, and outfield.
Down the left field line, hit a ton, and that is a home run for Duvall in his first at bat as a Cincinnati Red.
This guy has a penchant for drama in his first at bats.
Yes, he does. His first career at bat in the big leagues with the Giants. Home run against Mike Leake. He's traded for Mike Leake. And in his first at bat as a Red, pinch hit blast with a man aboard. Wow. Welcome to the club. Grimm had only allowed 2 home runs this entire season. He's given up 2 home runs in this inning. Walk, homer, single, homer.
No outs.
Why not smile, young man? Go ahead. That'll be the one of your teammates. teammates be walking around saying, "That's my guy." We've always heard about his power since even when he came up with the Giants, and that one right there, I mean, that ball flew over the bleachers in left field out on the Waveland Avenue, and he didn't get it all. Cubs with a 4-run fifth. Reds answer with a 4-run sixth. And still none out as it's 2-2 on Jason Bourgeois, who's had a nice game tonight. Bourgeois has 2 hits and has scored a run. Is playable at short right field. 1 out. Here comes Joe Madden. That's all for Grimm. Let's have left-handers Bruce and Votto coming up. Clayton Richard will come on to face those left-handed batters when we return. For Grateful Dead night, and see your Redlegs take on the Brewers. And don't miss that post-game fireworks show featuring a Grateful Dead soundtrack presented by Gabriel's Place, 381 REDS. What a 6 so far for the Reds. They've scored 4 times. Shea Bruce first pitch swinging against Clayton Richard. Jam shot pop up, 2 away in the inning.
Now, it was the 6th inning, right, when the Reds scored 10 runs.
Exactly right.
To break the losing streak.
Richard's come all the way back from multiple injuries. At one time was a pretty dependable, decent starter, especially during his tenure out in San Diego. Now he faces Votto, who's been on base 3 times. A walk, a single, a run scored, and then intentionally walked with runners at first and second an inning ago, which brought Brandon Phillips to the plate with 2 away. After that walk in front of him, Phillips had a 2-run single. Taking 1 ball 2 strikes. Enjoy a walk way out of that batter's box. You don't see him do this frequently. He won't leave the box at all. Votto has swung at 1 pitch tonight. This is his 4th plate appearance. Of course, one time he was intentionally walked. The second swing of the game. It sounded like he broke his back. Inning over. But what a 6th inning for the Reds. After a leadoff walk, Suarez. Long ball. A single later, Duvall, his Reds debut. Long ball. Giving the Reds a lead after 5.5. All over the country, the latest from the NFL. Get you ready for a full night of MLB. Catch America's free game every weekday, 5 p.m. Eastern on Fox Sports 1. Streaming live on Fox Sports Go. Duvall's home run, only the second by a Reds pinch hitter this season. Jason Bourgeois, strangely enough, had the other. Colin Ballister comes on from the bullpen.
Reds just got him back in June from the Pittsburgh Pirates. Not a trade, but it was a purchase. Reds were looking for relievers that had a little major league experience. So their bullpen was on the verge of being depleted, and so here he is in the big leagues now with the Reds. Originally drafted by the Montreal Expos was Ballister. That was in 2004, so that makes 2 players on this Reds roster that were drafted by the Expos.
This one will stay in fair territory. The Jesus for the first down.
I won't leave you hanging, Tom. The other one, of course, Brandon Phillips.
Oh, that's right. Yep. Traded into Cleveland in the big Cliff Lee deal. Yep. I wonder, there can't be that many players left in the big leagues that are playing in the major leagues right now, active players that were drafted, right, by Montreal?
I would imagine that there's a way to figure it out on one of these websites, but
the numbers dwindling fast. The Nationals probably have some guys that have been around a while now. that's, of course, where the Nationals came from when Montreal moved.
Of course, we'll stop at San Juan on the way.
That's right. For, what, a couple months, right? Although there's a lot of talk that the Reds played in front of back-to-back sellout crowds at Olympic Stadium in Montreal the 2 days before the season started, and there's apparently great momentum in Montreal about bringing Major League Baseball back to that fine city again.
I'd love to see a team
there.
It'd
be great. That is a really nice town. How long were you up there?
I was up there about a year in the 80s, and I miss Yuppie.
They'd have to bring Yuppie back.
They'd have to bring Yuppie back.
Yes. You didn't go with a team up there to Montreal, did you?
Oh, you mean for spring training? No.
I didn't either. I didn't make that trip. I've always been kind of curious, for so long there. Not a majority, as Castro's gone swinging for the second out. But, they had the reputation, Chris. I'm curious what it was like when you were a player there. But they had the reputation there for a long time of a lot of the folks not being particularly nice to English-speaking Americans. That is primarily the language of choice is French in Montreal.
Well, there's always been talk about them seceding from the rest of Canada and forming their own country. Not going to happen anytime soon. But I always thought that they were less friendly to Canadians who did not speak French rather than Americans. Okay. I mean, Americans had an excuse, but Canadians don't, in their mind. Beautiful place. Great city.
Oh, yeah. Fly ball to left field. That's a nice inning by Ballister. Clean, quick. Takes care of Jonathan Herrera, the pinch hitter. Reds are back in the seventh with a 2-run lead. Joey Votto intentionally walked in the fifth inning and brought up Brandon Phillips. And what you know, Brandon delivers. 2-run single into left field. Cubs scored 4 times in the fifth inning off Michael Lorenzen, but in the sixth, Eugenio Suarez tied it with a home run. And in his first at bat as a Cincinnati Red, Adam Duvall with a man aboard fair down the left field line. A 2-run big fly, and you're up to speed as the Reds have a 2-run advantage. Reds will bat here in the top of the seventh inning against yet another Cub pitcher.
The newest one of all, Fernando Rodney.
Yeah, the Cubs have been very busy here after the deadline. They acquired the veteran closer, Rodney.
38 years old now, Roddy. They think he's got something left, but they've got guys on the disabled list, the Cubs do. They needed some arms down there that would at least get them through some games until they get healthy again.
Of course, there was a time when Rodney came up originally, and he was pitching out in the bullpen of the Detroit Tigers. And I mean, he was throwing as hard as anybody.
As a setup man, right? Yeah.
And then he suffered through some ups and downs as a closer, along with a lot of injuries. And then all of a sudden, once he got healthy, Chris, and got a chance to be a closer, 236 of them in his career. He was a closer, was he not, for Joe Maddon in Tampa Bay?
Yes, he was.
Yes.
Saved 48 games one year for Joe Maddon down there, 37 the next. And then when he went to Seattle from Tampa Bay the year after, now we're talking about 2014 last year, he had 48 saves.
It's always been a little different. You see the coloring in his beard. He wears his hat all the time, almost completely sideways. Or split the difference anyway between straight and completely sideways, as that one has popped up.
The Cubs have injuries in their bullpen. Rafael Soriano's on the disabled list. Jason Mott is on the disabled list. Both with shoulder injuries, so we're not sure how that's going to go. Neil Ramirez, one of their other middle relievers, he's on the DL with an abdominal strain.
They have a couple of guest conductors here tonight, Chris, in the booth the next 2 hours, as this one has popped up. And of course, we were so proud of the United States women's national soccer team, World Cup champions this year. And they have 3 of the women from that team. I guess they're going to be singing "Take Me Out to the Ball Game." Very proud of them and how well they played. Soccer season, of course, underway back in Cincinnati. That is a fall sport, boys and girls in our area. Fly ball straight away center field. 2 away. And 3 of the players were out throwing out a first pitch tonight. They should have kicked it up there. Shouldn't they?
I'm sure you're not the only one who's thinking that right now.
Well, they did well, though. Every one of them was able.
They did a great job. Got a tremendous applause from. At that time, this was right before the ball game, so there was a good crowd in the house already.
You know, while we have a moment, we'd love to send out a special happy birthday greeting to Dick Weiland. You know Dick Weiland.
Better believe it.
86 years young today. Remains one of the hardest working, most influential folks on behalf of our community leaders in our entire region has ever known. Remarkably committed to civil rights, individuals with special needs, and dozens of other causes he so passionately supports. Rabid Reds fan. In fact, he helped raise money to complete the Miracle League field at the Dunham Recreation Complex over in Western Hills. And that field is known as Dick Weiland Field. Richard, happy birthday.
Indeed. And many, many more.
Fernando Rodney, impressive in his second Cubs game as a 1-2-3 inning. They're going to stand and stretch here at the ballpark. Reds lead by 2.
game. Tweet your strongest fan photo to hashtag #OhioDataStrongFan for a chance to be featured, just like John. So John Johnson, we thank you very much. Taking a picture right in front of the bat rack. Brought to you by T-Mobile. Well, to call the bullpen, John just made it, and Burke Badenhop takes the mound in the 7-5 ball game. The Reds have taken the lead. And Badenhop, the fourth pitcher that Brian Price will go to tonight. And he'll pitch the bottom of the 7th inning. You know, as it stands right now, the pitcher of record on the winning side for the Reds would be Ryan Matthews, who came into the ball game, pitched to one batter, did not retire a batter. As it turned out, he gave up a base hit, and then it was an out made on the bases when Brandon Phillips threw to third base, and they got Chris Bryant going into third base. But that's the way the game of baseball sometimes bounces. So the bottom of the order, and Addison Russell will face Burke Badenhop.
All right, here we go. Reds with a 2-run lead. They have 9 outs to get. Strike one. Russell had that 2-run single on an 0-2 pitch. This last time up, got jammed with this pitch. That's a good pitch by Badenhop on away.
A nice bit of fielding right there by Suarez. You know, you take it for granted when a ground ball is right out of a player that they're automatically going to get it. But we noticed when Suarez was going through a little bit of a defensive slump, those weren't really tough plays. But the one thing that they've worked very hard on with him, and that would be Jay Bell and Freddie Benavides, is funneling the ball straight up into the middle of your chest. He was kind of fielding the ball and then kind of funneling it up on one side, on his throwing side. And he was bobbling a few balls in that process, and they've worked hard with him to kind of correct that. They've taken the ground balls next to Brandon Phillips every day has paid off a little bit also. Because Phillips works as hard at that as anybody you will ever see.
There's no question.
I mean, it just doesn't come to him in his sleep. He practices it every day.
And you know, that is the, I'm not going to call it dilemma, but that is the thing about Brandon Phillips with all his flash and all of his spectacular plays. You know, when all the little kids out there watch Brandon Phillips play baseball, they all want to be Brandon Phillips as a defensive player, right? Just like maybe they want to be Joey Votto as a hitter.
Sure.
And those two guys are maybe the best examples I can think of, and there have been others through the years on the Reds and other teams too. It doesn't happen by accident. When all the other kids want to go play the video games, or when all the other kids say, you know, boy, it's really hot outside today. Maybe tomorrow if it cools off a little bit. When the kids say, oh, it's too cold. Well, Joey Votto grew up in Canada, Toronto. It gets pretty cold up there. I don't think he used that as an excuse to not still go maybe do an indoor batting cage and hit some balls.
I don't even think he went and did that very often, Tom. I think he was told by one of his youth coaches that if you want to get really good, you swing the bat every night in your basement 200 times. Now, can you imagine how long it would take you to swing the bat 200? Well, Votto did it. And in the process, brewed that swing. So he must be wired up with a Bluetooth or something.
Damn.
Because right on cue, we're talking about him. And hi, Tom.
Well, you know, that camera was right on. We saw that red light on. He's looking over there again. I'm telling you, it's Jim Day over there. Jim Day is sitting right next to that camera. He's not waving at the camera. He's not waving at me. He's talking to Brandon.
No chance, Tom. He is not waving at me.
I'm telling you.
He's not. He doesn't even know I'm sitting here.
I don't believe that. I don't believe that for a second. Votto is as perceptive a guy about what's going on around him as any person I know. He knows you're there. Now, normally, Jim, when you're here at Wrigley Field, you've got that great seat. It's almost like sitting in the first row of the stands. Now, who's behind you tonight? Anything going on? No, we've had celebrities in the past that you kind of hang out with and try and talk them into getting a hot dog or anything.
Well, I don't know where she went, but your sister was here.
Oh.
She was in the second row. And you know who is here tonight?
Who?
Joe Dieters.
Oh, now that's a celebrity.
He's in the fourth row, right?
He's a celebrity. That's a big leaguer.
Talking about you right now, Joe.
He's a big leaguer. Our outstanding prosecuting attorney in Hamilton County for a long time, and will be for many more. Pulled foul. There's Joe.
What's with the blue shirt, Joe?
He's got a reputation to uphold.
That wouldn't have a Cubs logo on there anywhere.
Joe is a Cincinnati guy through and through. On swinging is Schwarber. A perfect inning by Ballister. A perfect inning by Badenhoff. We're off to the 8th. Reds lead by 2. With you right after the ball game, and you're right about Adam Duvall, the Louisville kid. Home run off the Reds bench with Amanda Boyd snapping a 5-5 tie in what turned out to be a 4-run sixth, and the bullpen has held that lead in check. As the Reds bat here in the 8th inning. That means we'll see JJ in the 8th. He's starting to crank it up now, and if he can maintain the lead, of course, we'll see the hammer in the 9th. Tommy Hunter takes over on the mound.
Just acquired at the trade deadline from the Baltimore Orioles. The Cubs sent Junior Lake the other way. He was an outfielder that had so much promise and so much pub around him for so many years. He just never really grew into his prospect status.
You know, he was given a legitimate shot to win an everyday job
many times.
And you know, you have to give a little credit to the Cubs. If they see a guy, you run him out there. Now you might say he was never given a full season here or a full season there. They made the decision, this guy can't cut it. It's time to cut bait.
Well, it's also a year in which they feel like they need to plug the holes in the team that they need to plug, and not necessarily
run with another prospect, because evidently the Cubs have lots of prospects. So they went out and got Tommy Hunter. He's a former starter with the Texas Rangers. Started 1 year with Baltimore.
And he closed for a little while last
Yes,
year with Baltimore. Tucker Reinhardt, his second hit. And so we're going to get a pinch hitter, Schumacher, for Baden.
Good looking swing right here. Stayed right on it.
You know, some of you wondering, in case you missed the news earlier today, and forgive me for not saying it, I know you heard about it in Reds Live, wondering how was Duvall activated from the minor leagues? Well, the Reds waited over a week with Brennan Bosch, and they finally put him on the disabled list and brought up Duvall.
So Duvall, not a September call.
No, it's tomorrow. We'll see a few new faces tomorrow.
Probably get a few, but I would imagine with one more week left with the Louisville bat schedule. Remember that, you know, the big leagues are playing into October this year, and because the season started a little bit later this year, same thing for the minor leagues. So they won't play into the month of September. They're normally done right around the 1st of September.
Schumacher gone swinging on 3 pitches, 2 outs in the inning. Although the 7, 8, and 9 spots in the Reds' batting order tonight has been very good. They have 4 hits and they've driven in 4 runs. Bourgeois swings and fouls it out of play. 2 of 4. Scored a run. We're in the top of the 8th inning, and the Reds have a 2-run advantage. Fastball is high. Up, and that's over near the Reds dugout and out of play. Russell, the feed to Castro will end the inning. All right, Cubs come to bat last of the 8th, and the Reds lead them by 2.
celebrating German Heritage Day. Plus, the first 20,000 fans receive a Red Stein thanks to Hollywood Casino. For tickets, call 513-381-REDS. Visit select Kroger locations or reds.com/tickets. Looking forward to that. Those Steins are always a very nice giveaway. 7-5 Reds lead, Tom Brennan.
All right, Jimbo. Chris, tell us about J.J. Hoover.
JJ's in here to pitch the 8th inning, and that's his most comfortable spot. Good earned run average still. Walks are up a little bit lately, but he's got the stuff to be able to pitch around that and a 2-run lead to hold on to. Got the middle of the order.
3, 4, and 5. Coughlin, Rizzo, Bryant. Lefty, lefty, righty. Coughlin 0 for 3. Baden-Hop works a perfect inning after a perfect frame from Ballasting in the 6th. Reds bullpen, in fact, has retired 6 in a row after Matthews came in, allowed a hit that drove in a run. Well, they threw another runner out trying to go first to third, and that's how that 5th inning, where the Cubs scored 4 runs, came to an end. And right now, as Chris mentioned earlier, he's a pitcher of record in this game. Double to open up the inning by Coughlin. Trouble a brewing. And the Reds are cranking up. I was just starting to say, I wonder if tonight would be one of those games, as infrequently as Aroldis Chapman has been used. Is tonight one of those games Brian Price may say, I'm going to bring him in for longer than 1 inning. It is something that Brian Price was quoted as saying he would do on multiple occasions back in spring training.
Well, he's warming up like he's ready to come in, getting ready to come into the game. The question is, how short or how long is the leash for J.J. Hoover?
Tying run at the plate is Rizzo, 26 home runs. Oh, foul.
Boy, he just wanted to drop a head on that, didn't he?
Painted the outside corner there, did Hoover, with a 93-mile-per-hour fastball. So says umpire Paul Schreiber.
Been a lot of called strikes tonight.
On swinging. 1 away.
Strikeouts for Rizzo. Looks a little bit anxious tonight. A nice block by Tucker Barnhart.
Bryant, 21 home runs.
A team best 79 runs batted in. Picked up his 80th, in fact, in the 5th inning, that infield hit. Started 2. Did he go? Yes. On the appeal, the fielder called it.
Oh, yeah. You'll never convince those umpires in the stands, though.
Nope. JJ got ahead at 1-2 strikes, and now the count is run full. Trying to get Bryant to chase. And now Barnard wants to make sure they're on the same page. It would not be a surprise at all if this is the last batter Hoover faces. Chapman is ready to go in the bullpen. Let's see if he comes and gets him. Yep, here he comes. He smacks his knee as if he doesn't want to do it. Now, he hasn't given a signal yet. He has now. So how about this? We've waited for this for a long time. And not just this year. We've waited on this for a number of years. Giving the best pitcher on your team the baseball more frequently. You can't do it every night. Here comes Aroldis Chapman. And here is Aroldis Chapman in the 8th inning. He has 2 career saves. One in 2012, one in 2013. Of 5 or more outs. 2 in his career.
Wow.
He faces La Stella, left-handed batter.
Well, Rolla's got a save in his last outing. That was up in Milwaukee. The one game the Reds won 12-9 and pitched a scoreless inning and struck out 2.
You know, there are foul balls that you look at and you rarely ever see. You rarely ever see a foul ball from where we are at virtually the top of this ballpark that goes over the top of the stadium out into the parking lot.
It has to start with speed.
Yes. Oh, my goodness. That might have said 102. That thing looked like it was 111. One-two pitch. And there's another one up on the roof.
And that was
the plate.
Fouled off at 103.
You can tell this kid's not afraid now. He's taking some hacks.
That's got to be a moral victory right there. You foul off 103.
Well, he's fouled off, what, 102 and now 103.
You drop the hammer on him here?
No, we're getting gas. And that's all she wrote at 102. Just have virtually no reaction time.
No. You're swinging really at the arm motion. Because not only is he throwing that fast, but with his legs and arms as long as they are, he is closer to home plate probably than any other pitcher in baseball, or pretty darn close to it. Because he takes a tremendously long stride.
Here's Castro, the runners take off. Throw goes into second base and got it! How about that? The Reds had thought it through the whole time that they were going to throw the trail runner, who in this case is Bryant and not the lead runner, and Tucker guns him down to end the inning. How about that?
And this was Raisel Iglesias on the 23rd versus the Diamondbacks. He had all the arm angles working, had him off balance all day. 13 strikeouts, the most by a Reds rookie since 1967. You don't see it often. And man, does he look like he has a promising future. Giving the Reds hope for that future. Tip of the cap to the crowd, and well deserved. On that day, that was Raisel Iglesias Day, your top moment of August. But I got to tell you guys, that moment there to end the 8th was pretty good too.
Sure was. Love the fire and the passion shown by Barnhart here. This is a team that doesn't show you a lot of this.
Almost always advisable to go to the trail runner because he has to wait to make sure that the lead runner gets a good jump and goes. And Tucker rises to the occasion there. That's good D by the Reds. Even Aroldis Chapman appreciates a little help from the defense. And now Travis Wood comes in to pitch the top of the 9th for the Cubs.
Bruce draws a walk to open up the inning.
A couple of other trades we didn't mention that the Cubs picked up Austin Jackson.
Yep.
From the Seattle Mariners, an outfielder, right-handed hitter, can play really just about any position in the outfield. They got him in time to put him on the roster, make him eligible for the postseason. Kansas City Royals tonight dealt for Johnny Gomes from the Atlanta Braves.
Good for Johnny. We like Johnny.
Yeah, we do.
There's another guy speaking about playing with fire and passion. That's Johnny.
Well, if he didn't play if he did not play with fire and passion, he wouldn't be in the big leagues.
You're right.
I mean, that's an integral part of his game.
Leader. I mean, a leader. He makes people around him a better player, a more accountable player. Reds with a 2-run lead. And Bruce aboard to open the 9th inning. There's Brian Price. Brings Aroldis Chapman into the 8th inning of a game with a game on the line for the first time all year long. To try to get 5. In this case, 5. And it's the first time in 2 years where Chapman has been asked to get a save of 5 or more outs. Reds have played this year 1,170 innings of baseball. 1,170. Chapman has pitched 50 out of 1,170 innings.
That's the whole argument about taking your best arm and making him a starter instead of a reliever. But if you follow it along the timeline, you can see very perfectly how it played out the way it has. All started with the injury to Ryan Madson.
Ball for the bottom.
Wood comes in and walks the 2 left-handers that he was really brought in to pitch to in this inning. And Chris Bosio will sprint out for a little word with his left-hander. And that's full speed for Boz nowadays. Of course, he doesn't want to go out there any more than Travis Wood wants to have him out there.
Joey Votto has seen 23 pitches in the game tonight. He has only swung the bat 2 times because they're just not throwing him strikes. One time he had a hit, and the other time he grounded out to short. He's walked 3 times, 1 of the 3 intentional. And such is the life of a guy that, guys in front of him or a guy behind him are struggling. That's what they're going to do. They're just not intentionally walking. That's a difference between Votto this year, who will come nowhere close to the number of walks that Bonds had, say, in that 2004 season. And he walked 232 times, and the majority of those were intentional walks. There was a fly ball to center, and the runner stayed put. So Brandon, after Wood had just walked the first 2 batters in front of him to start this inning, swings at the first pitch in the at-bat and pops it up.
See, I don't have a problem with that, and I'll tell you why. Because after you walk 2 batters, all you're thinking about as a pitcher is throwing the first pitch strike. And 95% chance from Travis Wood that first pitch strike is going to be a fastball. So that may be the best one you see all night, and he just happened to get underneath it. As long as you put a good swing on it and it's a hittable pitch. I mean, if you're chasing the first pitch and it's on the knees and on the corner, that's a different story. But if you think it's right there and it's in your zone, well, you're not up there looking for a walk.
Two and one to Frazier, walks to Bruce and Votto to begin the inning, and now visits to the mound by Schwarber. 'Cubs have action in their bullpen. James Russell, veteran left-handed, getting loose down there. Just had a meeting on the mound, and they cannot get on the same page the pitch they're going to throw. Two and two on Frazier. My old broadcast partner with the Arizona Diamondbacks on Sunday's home games only. Legendary voice of NBC Saturday Game of the Week forever and ever, host of the Today Show, Joe Garagiola. When he'd see a catcher come out there, have a meeting on the mound, and then they go through 4 or 5 series of signs, the first line out of his mouth would be, "There are brains spilling all over the field."
He had a way with words.
Yes, he did. What a beautiful guy he is. Still going strong. And here we go again. I'm going to quote you, Joe, in case you're watching tonight. He still watches a lot of baseball, and it's early out there in Arizona. There are brains spilling all over the field. I mean, Chris, I have to ask you, how hard can it be? They have had 2 meetings during this at-bat and multiple shake-offs. But they got the result they wanted, a strikeout. So is it worth it? For Travis Wood, he'd say you better believe it. Very close to take. Perhaps too close to take.
Been a lot of pitches called down low in the zone tonight for strikes. And if you know that as a pitcher, I mean, as you're watching that, your pitching coach ought to watch it and tell you, I mean, you live down there. Why not if you're getting that pitch? I see a lot of called strikes overall, but that was the first strikeout that was looking all night long for either team.
Well, let's see if DeJesus can do what he did back in the 4th inning, and that's deliver a 2-out run scoring base hit. Ivan is 1 for 3 tonight. He also walked and scored in the 6th inning. That was on the home run by Suarez, which tied the game. Barnhart followed that home run with a single, and then Duvall's homer, giving the Reds this current 7-5 lead. Orioles champion has been sitting in that dugout for a long time, and longer still as Wood and Schwarber cannot okay the signs, and now timeout is called. Schwarber isn't frequently catching anymore. That is a position, of course, he played in high school, played in college at Indiana, and has played a ton this year at the minor leagues, moving up through our organization. And he played there when he first came up to the big leagues because Miguel Montero, their regular catcher, was on the disabled list. But now that job belongs to Montero. Virtually every game that is not started by John Lester. Lester brought with him from Boston his own personal catcher in David Ross. 0-2 pitch. Fastball away. Bruce started the inning with a walk. Otto followed with a walk. Sends in a fly ball to center and a strikeout against 2 right-handed batters for the southpaw rule. Still 2-2 on DeJesus.
Well, I'm not really sure what they're talking about, but if you notice on the left hand of Kyle Schwarber, it looks like a wristband there. But it looks to me like it's one of those wristbands that is designed to have hold a code of signals. And you see them a lot in college baseball. All we see is he's checking it out right there. You lift up the flap and you're looking at it. Normally when you see it in college, the coaches are calling the pitches. But I'm not sure what he may be checking on that. But evidently he's having a hard time reading it. Maybe one of the practical jokers in the Cubs clubhouse translated it into Mandarin Chinese. Might be Bosio. Always testing the rooks.
Three and two to count. They are loaded for Suarez. Third walk of the inning issued by Travis Wood. And here comes Joe Madden. That's it for Wood. Well, there's a chance if you'd like to speak basic Mandarin, you could have learned it in this half inning.
It's not over yet.
It's a good thing. Reds got to get some more runs. Then stick around afterwards for Reds Live, brought to you by Performance Kings Honda. Tomorrow, once more, Reds Live gets underway at 7:30 Eastern Time. Our game coverage begins at 8. Anthony DeSclafani against Dan Herron. Love to have you with us tomorrow night. Well, it's a very warm night. But Aroldis Chapman, who came on in the 8th inning, is going back to the bullpen to start throwing. He's been sitting down there for so long. This half inning has been lengthy indeed. Ryan Lamar is running for De Jesus. And he'll just stay in the game to play in the outfield, no doubt. Breaking ball to Eugenio Suarez, who had a huge hit. The 2-run home run which tied the game in the 6th inning is James Russell, been around forever. Son of former Cincinnati native Jeff Russell.
Well, you were talking earlier about the one stat you can use to rate relievers, and that is the inherited runners and then the number of those inherited runners you've allowed to score. James Russell's doing excellent in that category this year. He's inherited 24, and he's stranded 22 of them. He's got 3 of them out there right now in an 0-2 count.
Loaded on bases, on balls. 3 walks by Travis Wood. And Russell replaces him. Ball and 2 strikes on Suarez. Started 2, laid off. They no sooner put on the replay board that the Washington Nationals scored 3 runs in the top of the 7th to take a lead over the Cardinals. The Cardinals promptly score 5 in the bottom of the inning. Cardinals lead 8-5, batting in the last of the 8th over the Nationals. 2-2 pitch on Suarez. Hit hard. Knocked down by Castro. Throw. Not in time, and the Reds have added a run. We'll see how they score that.
That's got to be, well, I don't know what it's going to be. That's a good break for the Reds, let's put it that way. Hit hard by Castro. Starling Castro, or Suarez hits it hard. Castro gloves it, and if he gloves it and is just able to keep it in his glove, he's got Suarez no problem. A little bit more breathing room now for Cincinnati.
That's an error charged to Castro.
No Santa Claus at Wrigley tonight.
Still have them loaded, and now they have an 8-5 lead. Here's Barnhart, who has hits in each of his last 2 times up. Chapman had to come down from getting loose in the bullpen, because his spot in the batting order is due up next. Foul. Ryan Price's Reds not going to come in here and lay down for anybody, playoff contender or not. Reds have a lead. Lost that lead, came right back with 4 runs. A half inning, after which they gave up the lead on a 4-run Chicago 5th. Take advantage of an error. And that's a play that could have gone either way. The Giants have just scored 3 times in the top of the 3rd inning. And they have a 3-1 lead over the Dodgers in the opener of that important series. They have 2 more series left against one another. Giants are 3.5 behind Los Angeles for the top spot, and you better believe how important those games are for the Giants, because them coming back to catch these Cubs in the wild card is going to be a tall order. It can be done, has been done, but they're closer in their division than they are in the wild card.
Now Marlon Byrd right in the middle of that scoring for the Giants. He's driven in 2 of those runs with a base hit. Schwarber trying to frame that, and
Paul Schreiber not buying it.
2-2 pitch. And we'll try once more. Five pitches have been thrown by Wood and Russell in this half inning. Here's a 2-2 again on Tucker. And a liner into center field. It'll fall in. 1 run scores. Here comes Lamar, and he will score. It has been a really good night for Tucker Barnhart. And the Reds' lead is now 10-5.
Great bit of hitting right there by Tucker Barnhart. 2 hits in his last 2 at bats, and this was a big one right here. 3 hits overall on the night. And he just goes right downstairs, hitting right-handed in this at bat to help the Reds with a lead. The very tail end of this, Votto comes around to score, and he was really waiting for Aroldis Chapman to give a signal to Ryan Lamar whether he should slide or not. But Chapman's standing there. Of course, he's not used to telling the runner that he better slide. So you saw at the last second, Votto kind of gave a half-hearted slide sign to Lamar. By that time, it was too late.
And that's a player who, again, I brought up something earlier about there are very few people in the world who are more aware of what's going on around him than Votto. Remember now, Votto's not in the on-deck circle. He's not even in the hole. He's 4 batters later.
No. He's just scored.
Oh, I beg your pardon. You're right. I'm sorry.
So he was running down the bases, and that would be the.
That's very sharp. Oh, my gosh. This looks like the Cubs of days gone by. And a bench screaming at Chapman, trying to have a little fun down there. Castro, his 3rd error of the game. Look at that smile. But you know, Chris, that's the kind of athlete that guy is. He can at least put the bat on the ball.
I don't think I've ever seen him take BP.
Wow. It has been a rough night. And there's a rocket down the line. Watch Chapman get around the bases. Big fella on his way to 3rd. They're going to wave him around. And he will, like a gazelle, go first to home on a double by Phillips. Well, we've always heard about Chapman after Billy Hamilton might be the 2nd fastest player on the team. And he wasn't even cranking it up full speed right there. Bourgeois, a 2-run double. And the Reds are pouring it on. It's 13-5.
Chapman scoring from first base on this. Here he is.
That's fun stuff.
Bruce may want to take a couple pitches.
Yes.
Give the big guy a couple of breathers.
Say there are 2 players on this Reds team that have had, and there are more than that. But there are a couple of guys who normally may not stand out for you offensively, but they have had very fine games tonight. Are Bourgeois and Barnhart. Bourgeois has 3 more hits. And Barnhart has 3 hits, each with 2 runs batted in. Bruce started this inning with a walk against Travis Wood. 3 errors in the game tonight for Starlin Castro. 2 of them in this inning. It is a six-run inning. all of the runs are unearned. So the Cubs give up 13 runs in a game less than 24 hours after Jake Arrieta fired a no-hitter at the Los Angeles Dodgers last night. So, such is the life of a baseball manager. And now Castro makes a beautiful play.
And Jay Bruce is thinking, of course he does, on my ball.
Aroldis sprinting around those bases and a big smile. He gets the final 3 outs. He also gets a save. On all your home improvement needs and by your local Toyota dealers, proud sponsor of the Cincinnati Reds. This might be one of those innings where Starlin Castro might prefer not to lead off the inning. He drew a lot of cheers from the crowd here in Chicago, night in and night out on some bad teams.
Not too bad.
Well, that's because about 3/4 of them are gone.
There's some other cities where they would have treated him a little bit more harshly.
Especially the crowd that stayed.
Yeah.
They can tend to be the nastiest group of them all. Bourgeois to left. You saw Lamar into center. And Chapman can still get the save. A pitcher cannot pitch himself into a save. A team cannot out-hit a pitcher from a save. If he came into the game, 3 runs or fewer to spread, with the tying run in the on-deck circle, it doesn't matter what inning he comes into the game. If he doesn't get the win, he can get the save under that scenario. And we might see something here tonight if Chapman doesn't blow a 13-5 lead that at least since 1974, and we're trying to find out if it's happened before then, where a Reds pitcher picked up a win in a game without retiring a batter. Castro gone swinging, and that's exactly where we stand if you weren't with us with Ryan Matthews.
There are vulture wins, and then there are golden vulture wins.
Right. He came into the game, for those of you who are not aware, the Cubs scored 4 runs in the 5th inning. And he came into the game with 2 on, Chris Bryant got a base hit back up through the middle. It trickled into shallow center field. Brandon Phillips ran out there, and it hit off his glove in a diving attempt. He threw to third base. The runner from second barely touched home plate before Phillips threw to Todd Frazier in time to tag out Rizzo trying to advance first to third. The run counted, but the tag at third base was the final out of the inning. So the only batter Matthews faced, because he did not pitch any longer in the game, he did not retire the batter yet. He recorded an out. The Reds the next half inning scored 4 times to take the lead, a lead they have not relented. The loser in this one stands to be Justin Grimm. Chapman 2 outs away from picking up the save. 3-1 on Matt Caesar, a pinch hitter. Field. That is a hard hit ball by young Mr. Caesar against Aroldis Chapman. That's a kid that Chris used to talk about. Not only played baseball in college, but football. The Bears might want to recruit that young man, because that's a defense that had a pile of holes in it last year. Brutal. And the Bengals ran a rough shot against that new group the other night. The Cardinals have finished off the Washington Nationals, and that is really bad news for Matt Williams' team, because the Mets won much earlier tonight, 3-1 over the Phillies. So we bring you up to date on some of the standings as the Cubs are down to their final out. The New York Mets lead over the Nationals as we turn the calendar to September. The next time both teams will play tomorrow. We go into September with the heavily favored Washington Nationals when the season began. 6.5 games behind the New York Mets. And the Nationals have no chance in the wild card. No. That would be NUN none. Cardinals have won. Pirates are off. If the Cubs lose, they go to 10.5 back.
I mean, the Mets are having a tremendous year.
Yes, they are. They're 73 and 58.
One of the oddest things, though, about the Mets and the Cubs are that the Cubs are 7-0 against the Mets this year.
How about that? I'd say one of the reasons the Washington Nationals are 6.5 back. This ball is launched to the seats in left field by Russell, and he is homered off Chapman. Now, you don't see that very often. Chapman, that is only the 3rd home run he has allowed all year. 2 of them have come this month. We're starting to finish that question I asked. One of the reasons the Washington Nationals are 6.5 games out of first, an 0-5 record against the Cincinnati Reds. And they have a makeup game left still to be played.
That'll be a 1-game stop for the Reds in D.C.
I'd say all that money, they everybody felt like at the beginning of the year. All the talent on that pitching staff. But here, when it's mattered the most, the second half, that group has just completely disintegrated. They had a 5-3 lead in the 7th inning in that game. So it's time to their starters, or high-octane starters. There's strike 3 called. And the Reds have won it on the final day of August, one of their worst months in recent memory. The Reds down the Chicago Cubs by a final count of 13-6. Our Miller Time moment brought to you by Miller Lite. The first player since Ryan Jorgensen in 2007. Which incidentally also occurred here at Wrigley, where a player homered in his first ever Reds plate appearance. All right, Reds win at 13-6. It is now time for Reds Live, coming up right now.